Okay, I got the recording started. We'll kick off here in about 2 minutes. And I'll just trim what I need to trim from the final video.
Good morning, everyone.
You guys see everybody okay, Genesis?
I can see your slides.
Okay.
Good morning.
That's more important anyways. So for everybody that's here, I apologize. The public Wi-Fi is down, so I'm not able to put the slides up on the TV screen like I normally am. But you're more than welcome to get close if you want to see the content on the slides. They're basically bullet points for me to speak off of, which is kind of my typical. So there's not like exciting pictures or anything like that on there. All right, I've got 8 o'clock, so we're gonna get started. So we've got our inpatient team meeting for April 19th, 2024. Welcome, everybody. Do I have any admin team members here right now? I do not, other than Alvin. Alvin, any updates for the team from a PT, OT standpoint or things of that nature that you toss out?
It has to do. I just am really excited about the your upcoming fall and mobility conference with you and Chris, and excited to see what you guys bring back.
I am as well, sir. So we'll actually be talking about that on part of this, guys. At the end of the slides, I'll be letting everybody know kind of what the game plan is for myself and Chris next week. We'll be in Baltimore for a conference on bedside mobility. So first topic today, we're going to get into talking about narcotic discrepancies, and it's perfect because Omar actually just walked in the door, and I wanted to make sure that he was here for this portion. So so far for 2024, we have a total of 23, 11 plus 12 is 23 narcotic discrepancies since the beginning of the year, with 12 in January, 3 in February, and 9 in March. The majority of these are directly related to the narcotics just not being documented on. So they are pulled out of the Pyxis, and then no documentation is done on them whatsoever after they get pulled from the Pyxis. Most often, these are patients that have an order in for the narcotic that they are receiving, but the documentation just isn't taking place at the time of administration for that medication. So we've been working towards trying to change out scanners. We've been, I just recently got additional batteries for the wows. We've changed out one of the wows. We've had issues off and on with the scanners. There's some other issues with the charting system that we're going to talk about later as far as e-forms and signing and printing. But regardless of whether you scan that narcotic or don't scan it because it either doesn't scan or whatever the issue you might have, you still have the ability to document it through the standard process. That's not ideal when you click on it and you enter the information that's needed in order to get it documented. However, it is still prudent that we make sure that documentation is happening. So these narcotic discrepancies have gone up fairly significantly in the last couple of months. And we potentially face some very, very serious issues with this. Okay. So part of the reason that Omar's here is ultimately our ability as nurses to be able to pass narcotic medications is fully dependent on him giving us permission to do so. And as far as the State Board of Pharmacy and the DEA is concerned, if the policies that we have in-house and the practices that we have in-house are in such a way that we're having these many narcotic discrepancies, if one of these agencies showed up and they asked to see our historical information on our narcotic administration, because controlled medications are tracked from the moment they're produced at a manufacturer until the moment they either are wasted in a waste container or they go into somebody's mouth and into their body, right? It is tracked all the way from manufacture to its final destination, right? And we have to be stewards of that process. And so if the state or the feds roll in and they analyze that process and they find that we have regular narcotic discrepancies, the person that gets the axe could potentially be the pharmacist or it could be the staff member, right?
And if you don't mind me hopping in, I mean, it's really trying to protect your license with that. The big thing, I mean, with the State Board of Pharmacy, they're not going to be coming down to our with the pharmacist more on the person giving it. Say if and we have had this happen before where you give the medication, the patient says, "Oh, I never received that medication." Then where'd that medication go? At that particular point, we had a trend of that at that point happening. But overall, that then falls down on the individual's license, and as you guys know, that's your guys' livelihood is your license. So it's really, I mean, from the pharmacy perspective, they're not going to get. It's not really on pharmacy that's going to be coming down super hard on them. It's them. It's really pharmacy trying to protect your guys' license is the biggest thing. They're really looking out and doing the daily reviews to make sure that we're good for you guys.
Right, and I'll jump in on that. I didn't want to interrupt, but so the biggest thing is having a process. We have to have a protocol, which we already do. It's gonna be updated now. I'm sure Keenan's about to talk to you guys about it if he hasn't already. So that's pretty much what protects my license. I have to have some type of procedure now, which now we had to tighten it up a little bit because there was loopholes that were clearly being used here. So we have to tighten that up. But as Fair did mention, it's really based, it's a way to protect your license. You work really hard to get your license. I'm pretty sure none of you guys are out here just getting these narcotics and keeping them in your pocket, taking them home and creating a business out of this. It's, I know that's not the case. So let's just tighten things up here. Protect your license. I know there's situations where you guys are saying, the internet drops and things like that, but your narcotics, I'm looking at the historic numbers right now. The narcotics are about less than 1% of all your medication administration. So, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to go, whether it's right after you're done with that patient or at the end of the shift, and just go through all the narcotics that you did give during that shift and just ensure they're there, just to make sure you cover your behind. And then you don't end up in a situation that Keenan's about to explain here soon, where you end up possibly losing your license and definitely been reported to the Board of Pharmacy after so many tries. So that's all I really have to say about that part. I'll let Keenan kind of take over from here, but
One
yeah.
thing I want to tag on to what Omar just said. 1%. Narcotics make up 1% of the medications that our team administers to patients. Yet it makes up 90% of the discrepancies that we currently have with medications. Okay, so why? Why is that? Why is that the problem? What I've come down to is, and this is just because I've done it myself. You walk into a patient's room, they hit the call bell, you go into the room, they ask for a pain medication. You're trying to be expedient, so you go straight to the Pyxis, you grab the pain med, you head right back to the patient's room, you administer it because you're trying to be expedient because the patient's telling you they're in pain. So you're trying to do the right thing and get them pain meds as fast as possible. As soon as you walk out of that room, another call light goes off because someone needs to go to the bathroom and you duck your head in there. But you haven't documented that narcotic is administered yet. And now you've been interrupted by a different task. You forget that you didn't document that narcotic, walk back to your workstation, move on to the next thing, and you move on with your day, right? So the key thing I want to instill when you are passing controlled substance medications, pump the brakes, slow down, take your computer with you, document it in real time so that you don't forget. Okay. We have to clean this up. We're making some changes to, I'm kind of structuring a corrective action plan based on narcotic discrepancies right now. Okay. And that's part of what we're rolling out today. It'll be a 4-strike process. Strike 1, the individual will have a verbal warning, classic verbal warning, and is going to have a educational content assigned on narcotic diversion, and your controlled substance access will be temporarily suspended. Okay, it is just to make it a little painful so that you remember this is an important thing that needs to be done.
This means somebody will have to pull your controls.
Until you are able to get that education completed, okay? Strike 2 will result in a formal written write-up in which there will be a meeting with myself, Omar, and Denise. We will at that time have a further conversation specifically geared towards Board of Pharmacy and the potential consequences of narcotic discrepancy, okay? Strike 3 will result in suspension. Strike 4 will result in termination. This is on a 6-month rolling period. Okay. So every 6 months, any narcotic discrepancies that you may have had will drop off of your corrective action plan, and then you would restart. So if you were on step 2 at that point, at the 6-month mark, those 2 would fall off and you would go back to 0. Okay. Just like attendance is set up, you have 3 attendance marks in 3 months. 4 attendance marks in 6 months. After that 6-month period, those attendance marks fall off. They don't count against you anymore. Okay. The purpose here is to create a discipline when you are passing narcotics. This has to be a disciplined action. Okay. What do I mean by that? I mean, when you are pulling narcotic medications out of the Pyxis, you need to treat that process with respect. Okay. Pump the brakes, slow down, take your computer with you, make sure you document it off in real time. Okay. This is not intended to provide shock and awe. Okay. The evidence is present. We have 23 narcotics that, for all intents and purposes, we don't know what happened to them. Right. As far as documentation is concerned. Okay. That is, if all 23 of those are out on the street, that's a massive breach in the hospital. Okay. We know that that's more than likely not the case. This is classic. I forgot. I got busy doing something else. I was trying to be expedient. Okay. I need this to improve. Okay. This will get better with Meditech. There will be an internal improvement with Meditech. When you pull medications from the Pyxis, if you do not have an order for it, it will ask you to create a one-time order for that med before you are able to pass it. Okay. So there will be reminders in place because the charting system will talk to the Pyxis system and vice versa. Okay. They will communicate with each other. In addition, Meditech has built-in timers so that, because we're not even talking about reassessing pain scale right now, but it will have built-in timers for that kind of stuff as well. Okay. So there are some quality of life improvements that are coming that will make this process work easier for you. Okay. I totally get it. We have issues off and on with either internet connection or scanners. Okay. You are still able to document this stuff without the scanner functional. If you have an issue with the internet connection, like Omar said, it is highly advisable, double check your stuff, double check your work. Okay. The internet connection and the internet dropping issues that we have with CPSI, I don't know that there's necessarily anything we can do to fix that. Okay, I have asked IT to look into the issue on a number of different occasions. We know the issue isn't local with our internet, okay? The majority of the issue has to do strictly with CPI and their servers, okay? So that component isn't necessarily gonna improve until Meditech gets here, okay? I don't wanna belabor the point any further. I will have some follow-up information coming out about this, okay? But the key thing is I want folks to be mindful of their narcotic administrations. Equipment usage and maintenance. So one of the issues that we've been running into in the department is when something breaks, a work order either is or isn't put in on the device, and then it is temporarily sequestered, typically to room was at 37 that's down this hallway, or ICU B or C, you know, the bed or the piece of equipment is attempted to be sequestered, but it isn't tagged. Okay, and so it ends up getting pulled back into circulation and potentially used again. So I connected with materials. They were able to find yellow tags. They're located in the desk drawer behind the ward clerk, just to the right of the printer. Okay, when you pull open that drawer, they look just like the green tags that we have for clean equipment. They're yellow and they say broken equipment on there. There is space on there for you to write stuff in. So you can, if you want to put on there what it is that's going on with the piece of equipment, that's fine. But it also needs to have a work order. It needs to have both. Okay. So when you have something that breaks, whether it's a bed, a vital signs machine, a tele box, whatever it might be, and it's not something that is easily sequestered, as in I can't take it, put it in my office, or it's not something we can just walk down to IT, right? Like a bed. I want to make sure that we put a yellow tag onto whatever that device is. So that way other staff members don't come along and think they can use whatever that device is or bed is. When it comes to the beds, biggest issue that we run into is we identify 2 or 3 beds that need to be repaired. And then they get sequestered temporarily, rotated back into circulation. And then when the RJO bed repair individual comes out to try and find them, it takes them forever to track down what it is they're there to fix, because those beds have been further moved later on. By having that yellow tag in place, it will make it easier for us to sequester those items and recognize, hey, this thing's not working. I don't want to use this. I need to grab something else. Okay.
Keenan, can you hear
Yes.
me? I'm
Yes.
sorry, I moved those tags. They're closer to the whiteboard. So as soon as you open that drawer, you see them right there, all those tags.
Perfect. Thanks, Ida.
Yep.
E-forms and pre-op, this also has to do mostly with surgery, but also mostly with e-forms. So I brought up initially, we've been having issues with our e-forms and the signatures capturing, okay? This came up because we were making an effort in combination with surgery to improve our completion of the pre-op checklists. I have been circulating that pre-filled e-form that has every field filled in with exactly what it's asking for. Okay, so when you are in that pre-op checklist, you know what it is you need to be answering in each field. And when we started working on this, surgery immediately started noticing an improvement, but also started noticing patients would come over, the form would be open, the staff member would say, I filled it out and signed it, and then they would open it and the signature wouldn't be present. So what I started asking staff members, particularly on day shift, to do, and this is a formal announcement for everyone, when you have an e-form that you complete on a patient, doesn't matter which one it is, print it as soon as the signatures are done. And then we will hole punch it and put it into the chart. That way we have a paper copy with the original signatures. And so that way, if there's an informed consent or a pre-op checklist that gets opened on e-forms and surgery, and for whatever reason, that information is now no longer there, we have a paper copy with the signatures and all the details on it that we can provide. And that can further be used to scan into the chart to act as the original document. Okay. I did ask about this issue again with IT. I fully believe it is something entirely within, to my knowledge at this point, it's entirely just within CPSI. Again, this isn't a problem I think is going to be fixed before we transition to Meditech, because it's CPSI would have to do the fix for it. Okay. Well, that is our workaround for the time being. Okay. CHG baths on pre-op cases. So a key thing with CHG baths are to be used anytime there is going to be knife meets body. Anytime there's cutting involved, okay? So that includes wound treatment patients that are getting debridement, okay? So these CHG baths do need to be completed within 6 hours prior to their case, okay? I do know that most patients typically are in the mid afternoons for our wound treatment patients and whatnot, okay? The key thing, just remembering, so like our endo cases don't need a CHG bath, but a debridement on a BKA patient, it's gonna need some CHG, okay? And then of course, our abdominal patients, they get that CHG bath pre, and then they get that CHG bath daily post. I wanna say, how many days? A week?
5 days.
5 days? Okay. General stewardship and housekeeping. So these are a couple of items that different staff members came to me over the last 2 weeks with different topics that they wanted to communicate to the rest of the team. So we recently had a team come out and present new external catheter to us, PureWicks and Men's Liberty, a couple of different devices. Okay. And this all ties into what I'm doing next week, which is bedside mobility. Okay. So kind of since we had this big push and the company came out with these external catheters, so we've seen a huge increase in the amount of times that that's being used. Okay. Now, PT and OT and day shift staff, okay, have been coming to me recently and saying, hey, we're using these items a little bit excessively on these patients, okay? The key thing here is when you have patients that are able and have orders to be able to get up to use the bedside commode, we need to be using it, okay? Yes, it is nice to be able to provide a patient a PureWick, particularly overnight, okay? They don't bother you, you're not bothering them. They can go to the bathroom multiple times that night by themselves without needing to get up, okay? Win-win for everybody, it seems, okay? The downside is that that's not what that person's gonna have when they go home, okay? So I want you, and we'll have more about this when I come back from the bedside mobility conference, okay? But the key thing is bearing in mind, especially for our patients that are on swing, okay? Our goal is to continually get them closer to what their highest level of mobility potentially is going to be, okay? If they came into the hospital and before they came in, they were up walking without a walker with no issues, and they've got a hip fracture and now they're going through extensive PT/OT, our goal is to try and get them as close back to possible to that walking again, right? By keeping that patient in bed for extended periods of time, even overnight, okay? Which isn't necessarily what they would be doing at home, okay? We potentially are backpedaling that person, okay? By not engaging them and getting them up out of those beds, all right? So use external catheters when they are appropriate on patients. A fresh hip fracture, totally appropriate. That person's not going to be able to get out of that bed. If you don't put the PureWick on for them, there's a high likelihood they're going to be incontinent, which is potentially going to make things more complicated for them. Okay. Very appropriate situation to use an external catheter. Patient that's able to perfectly get up and mobilize on their own to and from the bathroom, not an ideal candidate. Okay. So I want you to keep that in mind when you're utilizing these devices. I get it. It is a huge quality of life improvement for you working overnight, because then you just have to check on the patient once or twice through the evening because they're able to go to the bathroom without needing you, right? That's seems like a win-win, but if that person's mobility status is not appropriate for the use of that device, we want to make sure that we're getting them up and moving. Okay. Upcoming Meditech training via MedPower. I will have, some of you may have seen email come out for this in your work email addresses. I will be having more information come out about this for you to get signed up to start working through modules. This is going to, it's kind of like the CPSI training videos. This is going to help teach you what Meditech looks like, where to find things to start your training. Okay. And then end user training is going to come later on, I believe in June. Okay. So this is to kind of grease the wheels and get you as ready to go as possible for end user training when we get to that point. Okay. End of shift duties. From today forwards, CNAs will check in with the oncoming charge nurse before they leave for the end of their day. Okay, that means day shift CNAs will not leave the building until they speak to the night shift charge. Night shift CNAs will not leave the building until they speak to the day shift charge. This is why, okay? There are end of shift duties that are consistently being missed on both teams, okay? Patients rooms, trash is not being emptied. Linen canisters are not being emptied. People are not getting gotten up in the morning for their breakfast. Okay. Same goes for night shift. Trashes are not being emptied. Linen canisters are not being emptied. And the wind down procedure isn't getting started. Okay. The shift goes until 7:30. Okay. That includes passing trays in the morning. That is a team effort. Okay. I do not want my night shift CNAs leaving until those trays have been passed. Okay. You should be starting your rounds on your patients around 4 o'clock in the morning with your 4 a.m. vitals and start taking out trashes and linens. By 7 a.m. you'll be done easily. Okay. You will easily be done with that process. Okay. The reason we want to do that is it helps to start the day fresh for the next team. Okay. So for the time being, CNAs will check in with the charge nurse before they leave for the day. Charge nurses will be checking with those CNAs to ensure that those items have been completed before they leave for the day. Okay. This is going to go on until I say it is okay to back off on it, until we've gotten into a groove of discipline of getting these things done. Okay. This is easy stuff, guys. Easy stuff. Okay. I get it. You're tired. You're getting near the end of your shift. But if you start these duties, wind down duties around 4, okay, days and nights, you will be done with it by the time you leave at the end of the day. Okay. Route of administration. So this one was brought up to me earlier this week. Oftentimes we will see a mix of orders go in on patients, especially for swing patients is the big one, because a lot of our swing patients don't end up with any IV access. So it's very, very important that you utilize the route as it is ordered on the order. If the order says IM, that means it is to be given IM. The order says IV push, then it is to be given IV push. If the order is for IM and it doesn't make sense, the patient just came from surgery, okay? It doesn't make sense. Why am I giving an IM medication to a patient that just had part of their leg removed? Okay, this isn't adding up, okay? Clarify that order with the physician, get it changed, okay? Don't document that you gave an IM medication and then give a medication IV, all right? That is a med error, okay? Goes against one of the 5 rights, so that is a med error, okay? And could potentially result in consequences, okay? All right, there's a reason that these things are put in the way that they are. Sometimes it is a mistake, okay? But make sure that the documentation and the orders that are written properly support the actions that you take, okay? And that means if you need to get something changed, get it changed. That's totally fine.
Bioavailability and the effect of iron versus IV is different, so.
Your absorption rate, the bioavailability, how fast it processes through the person's system. There may and likely is a very good reason why that medication is being ordered IM for them.
I think.
Can I say something on that point, Keenan?
Or
It's actually an order set as IM, so it could very well be a mistake because it's comes out as IM originally. So unless the doctor physically changes it, it will always be IM. So if you think it's wrong, which it very well could be because they just hit an order set, you need to call them and let them know, because I'm sure they'll be like, oh yeah, no, give it IV. So it is an actual order set as IM.
Yeah, and
So-
thanks, Genesis, and that is how Dr. Mendoza had me built it. Originally, I had
Correct.
it there is IM slash IVP with that, and you're specifically talking about the morphines with that. So with that, he specifically told me no when I built that order set. So he does want that, because there's an opportunity for it to say IM slash IVP with the route of administration. He did not want that is the generic one, so he is expecting for him to be asked about if it's a different route makes sense. So that is the way that he built it, and does, you know, somewhat expect questions if a different route makes sense.
and if it does, if a different route makes sense, or at least it seems to make sense to you, ask. Go ask. Right? And try to be proactive. You know, ask going into night shift prior to the physician going to bed if you can. You know, if you see something on there during the daytime that you're like, hey, this doesn't really make sense for the night shift administration of this medication, should probably get this changed, you know? Because they will contact them in the middle of the night to change that. And that's appropriate. Those are the appropriate steps to take. But, you know, if there's things that we see on there, order set goes in for a patient that's going for a surgical case that day, and you see something on there that doesn't make sense, bring it up early. Absolutely, 100%.
Just on the flip side, if they do get asked that multiple times, they may ask Omar to just change it to be IM IVP in the future. So
It's entirely possible.
keep on asking with that, and
Or you can,
appropriate.
right, or even just up front, just ask to have an IM and an IPP. So if I didn't realize those problems, I can definitely look into that further. I'll talk to you about it.
Yeah, it's an easy change on the order set thing, but Mendoza told me no when I asked him, you know.
Right. I can always revisit it. I'll talk to Keenan about it. I can revisit it and see if he wants to possibly do something differently.
Thank you,
I've seen
sir.
it where we add both, you know, not slash, but we have an IM and an IV and an IVP, you know.
So that is possible, it's just whatever
Mendoza,
doctor wants.
I'll make sure I follow his lead.
So I will be out. Chris and I fly out Tuesday morning at like 9 a.m. I'll be in Baltimore until Friday night. Pretty late Friday evening until about, I think we land in Vegas at like 6 on Friday evening. So I will be out for most of next week. I will still have my phone, so if you need to reach out to me to connect with me about something, you will still be able to do so. I will bring my laptop with me, so I will still be able to access work emails. I'll be able to access the charting system. So if there's things that are needed while you're gone, you're still welcome to reach out to me. I'm mostly functional. Obviously, I won't be on site to help address things in person, but I will have my phone and I have the majority of phone numbers saved, definitely for all staff members, most of the people that I would potentially need to get in contact with here. Okay, so please still feel free to reach out to me during that time next week. And I will do whatever I'm able to do. I will do the best that I can to try and assist with any issues that we run into or otherwise. Okay. Please note that during that time, this is a conference, so Chris and I are going to learn about bedside mobility. Okay. And when we come back, we'll have a presentation put together to provide to all of the team, specifically on med-surg, talk about what we've learned. And we're also looking at incorporating a lot of the content that they have already shared into our Meditech charting system. So they have some assessment tools and things of that nature that they've made available for bedside mobility that we will ultimately end up being able to have access to in the charting system for Meditech for assessing bedside mobility. So more information to come on that when we come back from that conference. So, and that's all I have for today. I wanted to open it up for both Omar and Z to speak, and then we can open up for anyone that has questions, comments, concerns.
All right, I'll start off. We'll let the big boss finish off. I just want to talk to you guys about three things. We already talked about the narcotic documentation, EMAR. I just want to bring something back and let you guys know that, so we did have a process on this before. We check, pharmacy checks narcotics every day, essentially from the night before. So we go through the billing, we do that for everybody, ED, med-surg, ICU, everybody. But the process was to write the SQSS reports, which we do, and that's how we keep track of where the numbers are at. If you are normally one of those people that keep popping up, I normally have a talk with you on the side. For the most part, everybody here in the room, I haven't had to have a talk with you. There's a couple of people I'm sure on the online version of this that I have talked to before, especially lately. I've been doing a lot more talking lately because it's getting a lot worse. So I actually got flagged by our quality personnel, which is Denise. Denise brought up to administration, so administration got involved. So we decided to come and do this together. So it wasn't just Keenan, trying to find a way to create this, create more of a punishment on this, but we just needed to make sure we found something to hold you guys accountable. Before it was just reporting, now we have to find out a way to get the nurses to be accountable for this. Just want to throw that in there. The other part is the overrides. Another thing that we're looking at, possibly implementing something in the near future, it's overrides, because the overrides percentage has gone up. So normally CMS likes to keep it under 5%. We're getting close to 10% right now over the last 3 months. So I can only go back 3 months without doing too much work. So I went back 3 months. It's a little high. So we're keeping an eye on the overrides too. So I would just tell you guys, as far as overrides should be they're not necessarily sacred per se, but you should be looking at it that way. An override overrides all the safety mechanisms that we have. There's a medication, when a medication is put into CPSI, it's supposed to match the same way it fixes. If it doesn't match, it's because we did a mistake or it hasn't been, so there's 3 big reasons. We made a mistake the way we put it in, doesn't quite match, therefore making you possibly create a mistake administration. There's a second nurse didn't verify, especially after hours. When pharmacy leaves at 3, you need a second nurse to be able to verify these medications because they're no longer in-house. So it goes from nurse -pharmacist verification to 2 nurse verification. So if that hasn't happened, that's normally a big Q and it will pop up orange kind of thing on your MAR. That's how you know that it needs another nurse to verify it. The third option why that override tends to happen is because it was already administered. So some of the numbers that I have seen, which are the more concerning ones, because this is actually safety, right? Is that the medication was already administered for whatever reason to somebody else 2-3 hours before, and you see it in your MAR popping up again. So you're trying to give it again, but because it was already administered, it's not popping up in your Pyxis, so you're overriding it. So now you're given 2 doses of that medication, which just happened this week, and I talked to the nurse already about it. So, we are gonna, look a little further into this and implement something similar as we're doing right now for the NARCs. But I just thought I'd mention it, so just be a little cautious with your overrides. We don't just override medications.
Yeah, I mean, overall, we have profiling for fixes, which means that any order that gets placed should be placed, that should come across over on fixes. Now, I'm sure most of you guys know about the Vanderbilt incident a few years ago, with that. The whole thing with that is patient was going for a CT, the patient was like anxious, they were trying to pull Versed, or they got a order for Versed, they type in VEs, and the nurse was not super familiar with it, so they grabbed the first VE that they found, which turned out to be Vecuronium. They overrid it, pulled it out, they mixed Vecuronium, even though you don't mix Versed, so obviously not familiar with it, but all that was partially because they overrid that medication and pulled out the Vecuronium instead of the Versed. Patient eventually, was not able to breathe inside the and passed away from that. So very practical reasons of, it should be profiled, it should be able to, whatever you have in there pop up. It pops up in there. It's, I mean, really the big reason for overrides is there's a life-threatening something event going on. So patient's crashing, you need a whole bunch of more epi. You go over there and you pull out whatever you need, fast as possible with that. Yeah, totally understandable. With that, I think commonly what we see is, something's not popping up, they go over there and they pull out, something, because it's not crossing over immediately.
So as azithromycins are not an emergency, let's not override azithromycin. I had a good conversation with Daniel.
That's the only way we can pull it.
Well, that azithromycin had already been given. That's why. It had-
So, but what is, so we get a 5 PM admission,
Mhm.
pneumonia, they're getting the standard Versed and azithromycin.
Right.
You guys are already gone, so you're not bringing it to us, but it's right down in our fixes every single time.
It doesn't
Well-
matter how we order it.
The reason that I have noticed on my end is because it was put in at like 5 and you don't get to it until like 7. So if it because it's normally put in that, what I have seen, because I went through it last week, this week I talked to, actually I was gonna give Daniel some props here, but I'll mention it later. That there was one that was actually put in like an hour and a half before. So I'm guessing it's part of the admission process, just put in the orders and stuff, but you don't get to them.
No, because
It's
I've actually gone DC that original order, put the new
Put it in
order
the
in,
one.
and it still won't let us pull it until.
So this is a citro specifically?
I
azithromycin?
said for myself.
This recognizes it as an antibiotic that you bring us, like that one that's like mixed for us. So it doesn't let us separately pull out the bag, the 250 bag and the 500 milligram vial. So then you have to override it to be able to give your patient.
Okay, so do you have, does it make you override both medications, the
Yeah.
bio and the?
It's like, we could do it on a test patient or something, but as soon as you order it, the Pyxis recognizes it as something that's already been like mixed and ready.
Okay.
Like, you know how like Zosyn sprayed out, we get a
Yeah.
Zosyn goes in the fridge,
Right, it's not in the
Yeah.
fixes yet. Huh, interesting. I'll have to take a look at that.
brand new order too, so it's not like it was put in and it's.
And it's delayed or past time. Okay, I'll have to look at that because nobody mentioned that before. So I'll take a look at it. I don't know if you
But I
can
think
think
that's
of
like the
it.
number one thing that I've ever had to override.
I'll take a look at that and further look into snaps kind of stuff, like a doxy will be another one to take a look at if that's the issue. I was gonna say I want to give a good scenario when this is okay. So I talked to, obviously I talked to, a couple of days ago, I talked to Daniel. Daniel had a couple of medications that he had it was an override on his end, and we talked about a couple of them, and there was a patient who actually had a completely electrolytes were completely whacked, like I think the magnesium was like it was like a 1 or something, and so those things, those things, he was changing magnesium, potassium, all those things make sense. If you're having issues and this patient is having those type of lab levels, you need to replace these electrolytes and so on, because that makes sense. Like a Levaquin, things like that doesn't necessarily make sense because it's For one, it can wait, and for two, you can just slow down and find out what it is that you're doing to make sure you can find problems. Similar to the control medication, just take a step, slow down, just think about what could be the problem. Because best believe I'm gonna be here the next morning and talk to the nurses about it, so I really don't wanna keep doing that. But we'll figure out a way to create a better process for this. Similar to what we did with the controls, we thought we had a great process. We were submitting SQSSs, but it turns out there was not a lot of action on the opposite end. So that's what we decided to do this. So this will be coming up here soon, but I just thought I'll address it with you guys. Don't override unless it's a medication that you really need. And then unless you went through the whole process and you really can't figure out why it happened. I do think there's gonna be, now I don't expect it to go up to zero, right? There's gonna be something, I'll come and talk to you about it, find out what's going on. So the azithromycin would have been a great one. You guys would have explained me that. I would have gotten a little further into it. But I think we got to the habit of just overriding, just completely overriding, because it was unacceptable. A sheet full of overrides. I should have 2, 3, 4 overrides, not a sheet and a half full of them, which was obviously getting out of hand. The last thing that I was just gonna tell you guys, as far as the IVs, you kind of brought it up. If we're here and there's an order put in before 3, we would always make your IVs. I think I can safely say, and most nurses will agree with us, that we do try to make your life easier as far as IVs. We have a complete clean room that we need to use. So if it's before 3, you put an order in, we will make it. So expect to see it in your med room. So if you see the order is before 3, go look in the med room. It's probably gonna be there. We're just having a lot of those situations where they're pulling them the next day, and some of them can only be stable for so long. So we end up wasting them, so we're just throwing money away. So check your IV items.
We just had to throw like $1,000 of like remdesivir or something away.
Yeah, we done a lot of that.
Because people were mixing them up beforehand. So I mean, that's literally money we're throwing in the trash, when that happens.
So just check your med IV, fridge and the cabinet too, because some medications are not refrigerated, so they won't be in there. So just get in the habit of checking that before you make an IV. Just to make sure. If it was put before 3, 100% chance of rain should be there. So don't make your IVs unless you see that they're not there. So get in the habit of checking that. And that's all I have on my end.
That's the spirit for, if anybody has questions for me. I mean, you guys know the biggest things that we have going on right now is, MedTech definitely up and going. Over the next, we should be working on finalizing the build here in the next couple months and then, heading into the testing. So that's, I think I talked about it before. I specifically had the anticipated go live being, in August so that we would have a couple months of our slower period, leading up to it so we can focus on training. And then about a month afterwards, still of our somewhat slower period, so we can get used to MedTech before our wonderful winter visitors come back in full force. So that's, definitely the hot project going on right now. Other things going on, the urgent care over at the Chase building. We're anticipating to go live with that 10/1. I think the probably most exciting part for that for the inpatient unit is Omar's gonna create a med bed program, where the want is, when patients, get discharged, we deliver the medications, to the patient's bedside, so they don't have to go to the pharmacy and, help the patient's, discharge portion with that. I can only imagine being discharged from hospital and still have to go wait in line forever in that Walmart CVS pharmacy there. So over there is gonna be having pharmacy, urgent care, radiology, outpatient lab. We're gonna have a dispensing robot that dispenses like 200 scripts an hour.
Yeah.
Super cool machine that stores like the top 300 medications, where it pulls up vial, it counts up like 90 pills, labels it, shoots it out, you scan and verify. So it's able to really help the efficiency of getting medications out, and reduce the technician time to actually, which is usually a slow part of what a retail pharmacy has. So we're able to get out a lot of the medications a lot more efficiently. What else is going on? Big projects. I think, we're gonna be working on, moving medical records, centralized scheduling, business office, finance, all that good stuff, over into a centralized building out behind physical therapy area. So that build should be here starting within the next couple months. Looking at completing that in this year. Still trying to figure out for the HIM spot. I know I've heard a large advocacy for physical therapy, occupational therapy, swing bed, to make that an activities room. So I'm probably anticipating that's what that's gonna be. To actually give our swing bed patients more of a room for activities and other things going on with that. What else am I missing?
Did the hospital help reopen the daycare?
They were selling it, so one of the big things that, so the hospital did purchase the building and allow them to, continue their business. So still, my eventual hope is to have hospital help with some of the childcare costs for employees. I'm still trying to iron that out and get some of the stuff approved with the board on allowing me to do that, but that is my intent. So we also purchased the lot that's behind the childcare facility over there. So they had a somewhat smaller outdoor area. So my intent is to expand the outdoor area of that facility as well. Other property purchases, I bought, if you guys drive through Baus, I bought 3 properties over in Baus over there, right next to the post office on the main road. If you guys have been to the Baus Clinic over there, has anybody been to the Baus Clinic? It's down a side road of a side road of a side road behind a couple gates next to kind of like torn down building. It is not the prettiest area over there, so one of my big things is I wanted a little bit more visibility over there. So I got it right on the main road next to their brand new post office that they have on their main road. The intent is putting a full-time clinic out over there with, also put a gym that's gonna be free use to the public over there. And then build a, activities hall for the community to use, as well. We applied for a state appropriations grant to get that completely funded, so I'm hoping to have that project started next year, over there.
Have some free weights so everybody can go there. They're going to have to go there.
Yeah, so, we're also working through a grant over in Quartzsite on trying to do a large expansion over there. So I want to build a full new clinic area that focuses, on a new primary care clinic that has, quite a few more offices, be able to have that. We do have physical therapy over there, but it's in the old part of the building where we're utilizing space that was available. But I wanted to look more like this space of what we have over here at this gym. With that, so that we can start focusing even more on rehab services. It's definitely been popped off and doing really excellent. So I want to focus that over there and then hopefully expand our retail pharmacy presence there. With the old building, we just put a CT scanner in Quartzsite here this last month. So now that they have a lab, CT, X-ray. What I want to do with the other part of the clinic is change that over into our urgent care. We do have
And Steve?
Yeah,
So, I also, am selling my home. I don't know if they told you, we do have travelers right now that come and it's a small community and we don't have a lot of rentals. So I have thrown it out there like, hey, maybe buying my 4-bedroom house for the travelers to be able to, stay there and then maybe get a little bit of the money back that we're putting out there. Something to
and I have talked to Regina because housing has been one of the large concerns, and I've been discussing multiple ways. I think that is, with something like that has been within the discussions.
Yeah, just throwing it out there.
Yeah, definitely housing is one of the largest challenges that we have over in La Paz County, and I am working multiple different directions to help, not just for the hospital, but also countywide efforts to help that as well. on upcoming projects. We do have a ribbon cutting next week, on Wednesday at 2 o'clock, for the new cardiac CT scanner. So we purchased and just installed a new cardiac CT scanner. That's the cool part about this CT scanner. Typically, it's multiple rotations to be able to get a good picture of whatever you're looking at. With this CT scanner, just able to get the image within one rotation with it. So that's important for when you're looking at the heart, to be, because typically if the heart's beating and pumping, you can't get a good picture with it. So with getting it one spin, you're able to tell what's going on inside the heart. That's important to be able to tell if the person's going through active MI or not. If they're, you're able to tell the blockages of each of their arteries with that. So you're able to tell percent blockage. You're able to tell the blood flow. Say if we need a ejection fraction, it's able to tell you ejection fractions. I know one of the challenges over on the weekends is not having ultrasound to be able to tell ejection fraction for heart failure patients, so you're not able to discharge them with appropriate medications. That has always been a barrier. This should help with that and help them determine ejection fraction. So we're one of the only ones over on the Western Arizona being able to have a device like this. So should be up and going here, and ribbon cut next week, Wednesday, 2 o'clock.
So it can be like the diagnostic CTA,
Yeah, it does.
which isn't as accurate as like a diagnostic CAT, but it's like the next best thing.
Yeah, so it's able to
Which
tell
is
you.
cool.
Yeah, and what it's supposed to help with is, say if a patient comes in with chest pain. And typically you have to wait, do a troponin now, 6 hours, 6 hours from there. You may not notice rising troponins for so many hours, but this actually can tell you, hey, the person does have a blockage here, they're going through active MI, heart attack with that. So able to get them out faster, more appropriately.
Where is that gonna be?
Here, we moved out the old CT scanner and
Also, it's here on site.
yep,
The
it's
CT
already installed.
on your way to the OR.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's where
That's why they were using the one right
Yeah.
around from the surgeon.
that's where I was able to move that one over to Quartzsite.
Okay.
That was over there.
Okay.
So one capital project that helped two different areas, in CT actually over in Quartzsite,
Yeah.
but then also a lot more capabilities over here. Any questions for me?
Sure.
All right, everybody, we're getting close to that 9 o'clock point, so I'm gonna go ahead and call it. If there is content that you have questions about that we reviewed today, or if there's something that you need to share that we didn't cover, please reach out to me, text me, shoot me an email. And I can always either, if it's something more pressing we need to talk about before the next meeting, we can do that. But otherwise, if it's something that you feel needs to be a topic on the next meeting, I'm more than happy to add that on as well. So, all right, everybody have a good Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.